So what'd you find out about this guy?
Andrew Lena? What do you want to know? Pretty much found out everything.
You got his address?
Yep, right here in Shire, like you thought. He works at Sloven Furniture.
Hey, I bought a couch from there once.
My entertainment center's from there.
Oh, the one with the,
Yeah, that one.
Sloven, huh? That could be useful. Anything else?
His MyFace page is a ton of vampire stuff. Pretty much every post or meme is about death or blood.
The blood is the life. What does that mean?
I think it's from Dracula or maybe one of the Dracula movies. I don't want to jump to conclusions, but I'd say this guy is all in on the wacky.
You're listening to The Cultured Bumpkin, a literature podcast with Jake Phillips, where we present audiobook quality readings of the classics for your enjoyment. Thank you for stopping by. And remember, just because you're a bumpkin doesn't mean you can't be cultured. Hey, and welcome to The Cultured Bumpkin. On this episode, I'll be talking with Darby Kern, writer and director of the award-winning audio drama Jake Muller Adventures, an excerpt of which you just heard. This is from the episode called Blood, which we'll discuss during our conversation, and you can learn more about it and hear the full trailer and order it in CD or MP3 at www.jakemulleradventures.com. Also, I play the character Kevin O'Hare, so keep an ear out for me. Since this conversation was recorded, Blood has won 2 Best Audio Drama awards at some different festivals. So it's a really good show. It's been well received. People really like it. And Darby wrote the thing and directed it, and we'll be hearing more from him. So last month, we met up in Wheaton, Illinois, the whole cast and crew of Jake Muller Adventures, to record the next 2 episodes. And it was just a great week, hanging out with everybody in Gap Digital Studio right next to Wheaton College. It was just the best time in the studio, in the hotel lobby, in the pool, restaurants around town, the 1st Infantry Division Museum, which is fantastic. We went into Chicago for a live performance, a live recording of Unshackled at the Pacific Garden Mission. And it's the longest running audio drama still on the air, so that was great. But we just had so much fun hanging out with Darby, along with just tons of other people and that kind of thing. Darby's a great storyteller, a great artist, a great family man. Bobby Joe, Lizzie, Emma, how you doing? And he's just an all-around awesome guy, and I'm thankful to be counted among his many, many friends. He's also a Jane Austen aficionado, as am I, so he's been an encouragement in my audiobook versions of Southern Pride and Prejudice, Sensibility, and Persuasion, and then I'm about to start my next one here pretty soon. And you can check those out on my YouTube channel. I'll have a link in the show notes. I just don't post them here in their entirety because it's a huge file. They're like 12 hours, 11 hours, 8, there's one 8.5 hours. If I just dump that on your phone, it would be, it would take up a lot of space. So anyway, they're in their entirety over on my YouTube channel. So all that to say, without further ado, let's peek into the mind of a genius.
It's always dangerous to ask me to describe myself or talk about myself briefly, because I'm the only thing I know anything about to any great degree. But I live in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I've lived here for about 40 years, grew up in Milwaukee, so a lot of my sensibilities and sense of humor are sort of Midwest, Wisconsin-centric. But I love to travel, love to go to Europe. Haven't done it in a few years, hoping to get back soon. I got into audio drama professionally in the late 90s, working with Todd Bustede at Gap Digital on the Left Behind audio dramas. Great time. Todd is a great guy. He is the best boss I've ever had. And I worked for my dad for a lot of years too, but Todd is a great guy and a great teacher. And he nurtured me. He carried me along to It really helped me to, I can't say perfect, but to improve my writing skills. And because of him, I love audio drama. I love writing it. I love producing it. I love hanging out with actors. I've done a lot of stage acting locally here. We had in the early 2000s, strangely enough, Green Bay had a really active independent film group of people. Really, we made a bunch of short movies here, and some of them really caught on, and got involved with that. Love making movies. I'm probably a frustrated filmmaker, but I just love audio drama so much that, and the budget is a lot better too. But I love working with actors. I love being with actors. My favorite place, my happy place, is in a green room or a studio with talented actors, because everybody is creative and everybody's shooting out great ideas and all kinds of fun stuff happens. I just like that. About 6 years ago now, actually, we recorded a show called the Jake Muller Adventures. The first one was called Unidentified. And my idea was just kind of asking a question: what should Christians think about? In this case, it was UFOs and extraterrestrial life. And I'm a person of strong opinions, so I had something to say about that, I guess. And we made the show, really borrowed some money from an investor friend, and she hasn't seen any payback yet. But we produced a good show, I think. Really, it turned out much better than we wanted it to. I shouldn't say it turned out better than we thought it would. And that's in part because I had a great cast, and my production partner, Micah Touche, is amazing. He handled all the post-production, the editing, the sound effects, the Foley, all that. He did everything but the music in post-production. And it turned out to be a really good show that not enough people have heard. But we were able to attract somebody who wanted to invest. It took 5 years to find the guy, but he invested, and we've recorded 2 more. You know a bit about that. And the first one just came out the middle of October, and it's called The Jake Muller Adventures Blood. Fun little story about vampires in Chicago. And really, what should a Christian think about vampires, and what should, what does blood mean to us, blood sacrifice, that kind of thing. And it is so much better than we expected to. Unidentified is a show I'm very super, super proud of, and Blood is even better. So that's where I am right now.
Identified. I've heard that. I love it. We'll have links in the description, by the way. And then I'm 2 episodes into Blood, and I was in that one, and I love it.
I was going to say, do you hear any familiar voices?
And, so that's really cool. I want to circle back to that in a minute as far as audio drama, okay. But as far as with your, your sense of aesthetic, whether it's writing or whatever, movies, music, what do you feel like has influenced you in your creativity?
I could probably list a bunch of movies and TV shows and even some audio dramas that have influenced me. There's some that there's a lot of, let's say my wife and I watch a lot of cop shows, and I'm sort of at the point now where we'll sit down and I'll be sitting in my chair just kind of like this, watching, and I'll hear a story on a show that I really like. I was just watching one last night. I don't need to say which one, but I was just like, that's not the way people talk. That's not the way people act, and it's an opportunity for the writer, the producer, whoever, to kind of, get their soapbox moment in. And I'm not going to say that I don't do that with Jake Muller and other shows that I work on, but it's, a lot of things throw me off. But then I'll watch something, and I don't mean to promote this, but I'll watch something like NYPD Blue because it's a cop show, and I don't invest in the language and the sexuality and all that stuff, but just the way people talk it's a little bit goofy. But then you get out on the street sometimes, you'd be like, oh yeah, people really do talk like that, and I always say that my style of writing, which is different for most people, especially dialogue, I got from it started sitting in a mall in the food court of this mall, which was on the third floor. It's not around anymore. It was in downtown Milwaukee, but I used to sit up there right by the escalator when I was in tech school, and I would listen to people as they talked coming off this escalator, and just kind of write things down that people were saying. And I know that's goofy, and now it seems almost stalkerish or icky in a way. But just hearing, I wouldn't write down everything. I would write down people's stories, but people turn phrases and they don't mean to, or sometimes they'll use some Yogi Berra-ism, something like that, completely unintentionally, not something Yogi said. But people talk weird. I mean, they just do. You get in a conversation with somebody and you ask a question, and the whole answer might be, well, that's the complete thought. and sometimes that's all you need. And I kind of like doing that with people, with characters. And it's fun because you're in the Jake Muller Adventures, play a great character who now that I know who's playing the role, I can really write for, and I really enjoy that part of it a lot. Because there are 2 more shows coming up with you in it. Nice. And I got to be honest, one, you and I just met last fall, and the scripts that we recorded were already written. So it was like, okay, who are we going to get? And we found this terrific actor who is playing this part now. But the scripts were already written. So I didn't have your speech patterns or anything like that down in my head. But now I do. And so there's this camaraderie between your character, whose name is Kevin, and his business partner. The other people in the Jake Muller Adventures. Jake is one of them, and a character called Nate, who Christian Gill plays. And now I know who's playing all 3 of you, and I can tailor it to your voices and to your patterns, and it's so much more fun to write. And I think when you get the scripts, you're going to read it and you'll change some things, and that's fine. But it's great to be able to know who's playing the part, because that's when you find a voice that just works. I can create some stuff, and sometimes it sounds good, but actors bring more to it.
Right.
So,
well, the reason we met at, I guess, last year at SonicCon, and really the way that we met was, I think it was me saying, hey, the way you wrote that character was amazing. Because I really like your dialogue. I think it's so good and so real. So that's interesting. That's an interesting peek into how you could do that. And in the case of that, it was I guess the crew of a I guess a B-17 bomber.
B-17, yeah.
And in just the radio chatter, the talking back and forth, it was so good. I was not in World War II, but I have sat in a tank or in phase where guys just talking into the headset, and it was like, yeah, that's good. That's good. Well,
it's funny because I've never served. I apologize, but I haven't served, so I've never been in that situation. I've never been in a tank where to listen to people like that. I was in a tank one time, but it was just kind of visiting, and it was in a park, not on a base or anything like that. But I have plenty of friends who have served. Very grateful for them for a lot of reasons, but their service is one of them. Thank you for your service as well. But I know these people have a different way of speaking, and one of my best friends was in the infantry for several years. And his story's funny. and we actually wrote a script together about it because he was in the infantry for a while. He joined when he was 18, right out of high school. He served in at Fort Lewis in Washington. Got done, came back, went to college, started college, and I think it was his sophomore year, like the beginning of his sophomore year, his reserve unit got called up, and it was a truck driving unit. And he spent all his time in the infantry, ends up in a truck driving unit, and they go to Operation Desert Storm.
Oh, wow.
And the way he says it is so funny because he's like, yeah, I was in the infantry for all this time. Now I'm sitting in a truck with a chick sitting next to me. I got my rifle slung behind me, and I can't even chamber around. You know, it's like I'm on the adventure of my life. You know, I never thought this was going to happen. I'm on the adventure of my life, and it is so completely distant from everything I've ever done in the military. But he had a good time with it. You know, never exchanged any fire with anyone. Thankfully, I'm glad he's still with us. But you know, his experience it became a lot of fun, but really weird. But talking to him and going to movies with him, and also when I was writing Left Behind, there was a situation where I asked him about something, and his response was, you know, I said, okay, these guys are in Jerusalem, they're looking for this bath of something or whatever. You know, how if these guys just have like a quick conversation, how would they do it? He's like, he'd probably say something like, yeah, where are these fountain thingies, you know, and, you know, really not invested in the conversation at all. And I was like, really? It's like, you know, that informal? He's like, oh yeah. Yeah. It's not a John Wayne speech for sure. It's not that.
Right.
But, and then we went to see Black Hawk Down, which is one of my favorite movies. And we walked out of there and the second thing he said, the first was, if you need another reason to dislike Bill Clinton, there you go. But not to get political about it, but he said that is the first movie that I've seen that really sounded like we sounded when I was in the service. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh yeah. So if I'm writing something with a military timbre to it, I'll try and watch that movie. And there's a couple other ones that I watch that, you know, because like I said, I've never served, and it takes me something different to get into the head of the warrior, and you know, it doesn't come naturally to me. So I have to have, you know, friends like Mark and even you know, read through it and say, does this sound right? Because it just sounds a little cheesy to me sometimes.
What about it's a group that maybe it's a character like you have to get it right, but also you don't know anything about it. If it's he rolls up on a construction site, how are they going to talk? Or, you know, he's in the back of a restaurant, of a 5-star or restaurant, you know, how do the waiters talk? Because it's going to be different probably.
That I know a little bit about because I've experienced that. But yeah, the construction thing.
Yeah, if you know nothing about it. I mean, military, you know, there's everybody's in the military or whatever. A lot of people, but like, how would you say, hey, get this right? Who do you talk to get dialogue right?
You know, there's always somebody who I guess I have a broad knowledge of people who do various jobs, but there's also sometimes you can put yourself in that mindset. And I don't want to say construction people are simple people. They're really not. It's quite the opposite, in fact. But there's sometimes you play the stereotype, and more often than not, there's a reason for the stereotype. So, you know, the way you hear something rings true because it is true. A lot of times, you know, some things are watching different shows, different movies kind of thing. You know, ER is a huge influence for the medical speak. And you heard some of it in Blood.
Right.
And it doesn't match the pace that I wanted necessarily, but I can't ramp my actors up any more than they'll go, you know. but I think they did a good job. But I think it's sort of a mindset that you explore. Okay, how does, and now I'm working with a character who's a college, like a Ivy League college philosophy teacher. And one of the things that I do, and I learned this from a guy named Michael Uslan, who is the producer of the Batman movies. I got to meet him several years ago, and my daughter, who's also a writer, was with me. And she just, we waited in line for 20 minutes to meet him. And he's a super nice guy, really, really down to earth. But she just said, I'm a writer. And at the time, I think she was about 12. And she just said, "Do you have any advice for me?" And this is great advice too. He said, when you're writing dialogue for somebody, find someone who fits that character. Doesn't have to be someone, coexistent to that character, and use their voice in your head to write their dialogue. He said, I thought this was brilliant. He's a New Jersey guy, Jewish family, very working class, very blue collar. But he said when he wrote Batman comic books back in the 70s and 80s, he said that when he was writing the character of Alfred, he had his father's voice in his head. And not that his father was a butler ever or anything like that, but he used his voice, that wisdom from his father's voice, he could use in the writing. And he said it really worked for him. And he wouldn't tell what the other influences were to get the voice right. But it's really cool because it keeps things consistent, and it also gives you the mental picture you need. And I'm using that for a character that I'm working on now in the next Jake Muller stories, who is a Ivy League professor. And I'm not going to tell anyone who I'm basing the sound on. So now I just have to find an actor to play it.
Right. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's long-winded, but yeah.
So going to that was a great bit for aspiring writers, but for aspiring writers, what's something that you would tell them? I mean, you just told us what
what Michael Uslan says.
Michael would say, but like, what kind of thing would you give to a writer? Advice?
Just general advice. First, listen to people a lot. Listen to people all the time. Listen to people you don't know. You don't have to eavesdrop so much, but just kind of get an idea how people talk, how people communicate with each other. Interpersonal communication is, first of all, it's an art we're losing because of things like phones and whatever. But the way people communicate with each other, husbands and wives, parents and children, bosses and employees, listen to the way they talk, and listen and this is a good kind of life example too. Listen for the good stuff that works, that's effective, and listen for the stuff that doesn't work. Because as writers, we're looking for things to go wrong all the time. If things don't go wrong, there's no story. So two people miscommunicating is perfect for story. Listen to people, how they talk, how they act, depending on what kind of writing you're doing. Research is always huge. Know what you're talking about. I just read a book recently about screenwriting, and I think I'm done reading those books. But this one was talking about, they always say, write what you know. And that doesn't mean that, okay, I have to write about, restaurants or banks that I've worked in, just different things like that. But it's write what you understand about people, because really your stories have to be about people. And you can fake the stuff about a bank or a restaurant. or you can do a little bit of research and get that. But what you have to know is how the people interact. What's going to create drama for you? What's going to create a story? You know, it's funny because Jake Muller originally came to me as just an image of a person running across a frozen lake in the middle of a storm with a hunting rifle. And I don't even know where that image came from, but I started thinking about it. I was like, I got to have a story here at some point. And I just sort of played with it. And eventually it grew into UFOs and government conspiracies and, you know, angels and demons and all that stuff. And, you know, just out of this one goofy image. So, which in northern Wisconsin you see all the time,
Right.
all winter.
Interesting. So for people that have never listened to an audio drama, I mean, if they're listening to this, they've probably tried an audio book at least.
Okay.
But what is special about audio drama to you?
I like that it leaves things open for you. Books typically will give you everything you need. If the writer's any good, it'll give you everything you need. Audio drama leaves gaps for your brain to fill. You know, you always hear the term, and I don't know how far back it goes, but it's well back to the 40s or 50s, that it's theater of the mind. And it gives you a bigger, like a base for a bigger picture. And the examples that I always use for that, for what audio drama is capable of, is a show from the 1950s. It was on the BBC from like 1951 to maybe 1960. It was called The Goon Show. And it was a comedy show. Peter Sellers was one of the actors. You may have heard of him. The other two were Spike Milligan and Harry Seacombe. And these three guys finished World War II. They were a little bit nutty. And Spike would write these scripts that were just, they're crazy. It was just surrealist kind of stuff. You know, there's what would they do? There's in one of them, somebody would ride a leather omnibus, and then he would jump off and he'd punch people in the nose with just a big boxing glove on his hand. And just the idea that there's such a thing as a leather omnibus, and you know, a double-decker London bus, but it's made out of leather. You know, why? I don't know. You know, one of my favorite things, one of the more famous ones, is somebody drove a wall through the desert at really high speed. And and you have this picture in your head of somebody just sitting on top of a stone wall, and then they would give you a sound that was completely incongruous with somebody driving a wall, whatever that would sound like. I don't know, but you just bought it. You bought it all because you knew that it was one of those things. Okay, I don't have to think too much about this. I don't have to think logically about this. You know, and that's one of the great things. And every episode would end with like the whole place exploding and everybody dying, or it would just kind of fizzle out at the end. And you just think, what did I just listen to for the last half hour? I don't know, but it was hilarious. And I laughed and I feel good. But it was a huge hit in England, but none of it made literal sense. And now, I mean, somewhere in a closet back here, I have probably 20 CDs of the show, and it's just one of those things that, okay, I don't want to think for a little while. I'm just going to listen to something like this, and you fall into it, and you just laugh. But what it did is it showed you that there's your mind is able to create these expansive pictures, and and it happened again in the early 1980s when they did a dramatic radio show of Star Wars for National Public Radio. You're like, this is the most visual movie that's ever been out. And now all of a sudden there's no visual element to it, but the thing worked. And it got people listening to audio drama again for a little while in the 1980s.
Right.
So it's just, to me, most of it is fun. I I couldn't raise the money to make a movie of Jake Muller because it's just too big. But I can write these audio dramas and get the best actors in the country to record it and have a lot of fun with it. So
that's great. That's it shows up in your work. So when you run into a writer's block, do you ever get writer's block, or like, oh, what do I do with this guy? Do this scene? I mean, what do you do about that? Or if not, what's your process as you're writing, or whatever you care to share about that?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm a really lazy writer. So right now I have to have a script done by the end of the month, and I'm maybe a quarter of the way through it right now. 30 pages out of 120, and it's probably going to end up being longer than that. So I'm kind of lazy about it, and I have a full-time job too. So sometimes I just bring my computer to work, and on my lunch break I'll bust out a scene or two. But I say that, but I started with a 28-page outline for it, which is actually really long. Usually with an outline, I'd have like 6 or 7 pages, but this is one of those stories that have sort of been kicking around in different formats for almost 20 years. And I hadn't been able to really break it until I said, oh, you know what? This should be a Jake Muller story. So that's what I'm doing with it. And I told it to Micah, and Micah was like, yeah, that's great. Seems huge. I don't, he's going to kill himself to do the sound effects, but it's going to be the biggest story so far. And plus it's on at least 2 different continents and about 6 different languages. So you have to figure out a way to make all that work. But in this case, I start with this really detailed outline, and then just sit down and kind of fill in the gaps, add the dialogue. And I know that sounds like it's kind of too easy to work. And writing is hard work. And I don't always love it. I know Phil Lawler would slap me in the head for saying that, but it's a lot of work. It's the hardest thing I've ever done, but it's the most fulfilling. But even for myself, I don't think there's one way of doing it that works. And every writer has different methods for doing things. Everyone that I've met, and we don't always agree on it. Sometimes you stare at that page for a while. But writer's block, I think, is not something you can really afford to embrace. I think it just creates problems for yourself. And what I'm doing now is if I'm staring at the page for a little while and I can't figure the scene out, I'll just work on a different scene. Sometimes if you have several things going on at once, sometimes it's easier to just work on another thing. Which, for writers who have contracts to get stuff done, sometimes having a time away from one project is actually good for you. Sometimes you just get up, you listen to another show, you read a book, you watch TV or something. I remember this is kind of funny. It's a few years ago. Phil Lawler, who I mentioned, was a writer for Focus on the Family and Adventures in Odyssey, created it. And I forgot exactly what the post was, but it was something about how he was having a hard time writing something. So, so he was just kind of taking a break or something. And I commented on it, probably some smart aleck response. And then his wife said, yeah, but you're lying on the couch. There's a TV on and a radio playing in the other room. So all of this is a non-starter. And that's, that happens all the time to writers. Somebody just said recently that, and I don't know who it was, but, your family's not going to understand why you say you're writing, but you're sitting in your chair watching TV, or you're wandering around the house, you realizing that a light bulb doesn't work. So you change it real quick. I mean, you think of every possible thing you can to keep from actually sitting down and writing. that's real. But at the same time, your mind is still engaged. You're just sort of delaying things.
Yeah. It's like it's searching for a solution to your problem, but almost.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes you screw the light bulb into the wall or the ceiling, and all of a sudden the light bulb goes off in your head. It happens.
Yeah.
It's happened to me. So it happens to real writers too, I think. So
what all have, or not what all, but can you mention some things that you have written in the past, or shows, or what?
Yeah. I started with Left Behind. I wrote 72 episodes of the kids show, Left Behind the Kids, and that's where I met Dugan Shabani, who plays Jake in the Jake Muller. Terrific actor. He was like 14 when I met him, and he was already like miles ahead of where I was at 30 as an actor. So 72 episodes of that. I think I did 24 of the adult, and I'm saying that in air quotes, adult Left Behind show, and 4 episodes of Left Behind the Rising, which I still think is one of the best shows I've been involved in. Todd really let me kind of experiment with that, and it worked out really well. I wrote the show Kids Corner for a while, several years, probably about 30 episodes of that. That was a kids show, obviously. Back to God produced that. They're the broadcast. They were, I don't know if they're still around actually, but you can find it online. But they were the broadcast wing of the Reformed Church. And all the characters were lizards. So that was kind of fun. Amy Lilly was the character Liz, who was a boy lizard. She's brilliant too. She's in Jake Muller. Yeah, she's died twice. The same character's died twice now in Jake Muller. So it's kind of fun. Amy, come back. We're going to kill you again. It'll be fun. You'll like it. Yeah, she's a terrific actress. She's a great voice, and she's just a sweet, sweet person. I really enjoy working with her. I've written for The Extraordinary Adventures of G.A. Henty, that Heirloom Audio produced. And I'm trying to think, Wolf the Saxon was the first one I did for them.
I read a lot of the books as a kid. I've never heard the other. Okay. I need to check them out. Yeah,
you should check them out. Heirloom Audio, and they are really high quality shows. Not just the writing. The writing is sometimes mediocre, but I'm saying that in reference to mine. But they recorded them in London with some of the best actors. Hang on a second. Let me just grab one right off my shelf here.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. This is one I enjoyed a lot. It's called For the Temple. I don't know if you read the book. It takes place.
That's one in Jerusalem.
Yeah, first century.
Yeah, I did read that.
About the destruction of the temple in 70 AD. And I was really, really, at first I was not enthusiastic about it, but then as I read it and saw the possibilities in it, because you know how the books are, they don't, you can't do a straight adaptation of them. You just can't really. But once I saw what I was allowed to do and what I was capable of doing with it, I had so much fun with this one. And I just look at the actors on the back. Brian Blessed is Henty, and if you don't know who Brian Blessed is, he was in Star Wars Episode 1, Disney's Tarzan. He was the bad guy, Clayton. He's in Flash Gordon. He's got the great voice, great booming baritone. Gordon's alive? I can't even do it. But.
Henry V with Kenneth Brown.
Absolutely.
He was, what is it, War?
He's Duke of Exeter.
Oh, okay, that's right.
Yeah. Hang on a second. Yeah, there's a scene where he goes in to see the King of France and the Dauphin, and just commands the room, walks in the armor, and just standing there. I wish I could remember the dialogue, but But he basically just walks in and says, you know, if you try to hide the crown even in your heart, Harry's going to find it. And he just lays the wood to these guys verbally. But yeah, he is Brian Blessed is Henty, the storyteller in all of them. So he's wonderful. Chris Larkin, who, if I remember right, is one of why can't I remember her name right now? She's in a million Agatha Christie movies, and she was in Downton Abbey, and she just passed away like 2 months ago. And I'm embarrassed that I don't remember. Maggie Smith. She's one of Maggie Smith's boys. He's one of Maggie Smith's boys. Julian Ryan Tutt, who I always remember him from Notting Hill. He's a writer for some magazine. Hugh Grant sneaks his way into a press junket, and he walks in with him, and he's hilarious. But he's a terrific British actor who's been in a lot of TV, a lot of mysteries and stuff. Kathy Sarah, who was in Downton Abbey, and I think Call the Midwife, she's in it. So I mean, I'm a fat guy in Green Bay, Wisconsin, who's writing dialogue for these brilliant actors. I'm just like, how did this ever happen? You know what? And the shows are great. It's a lot of fun. I did a couple scripts for Lamplighter. They used one of them, Extraordinary Little Maid, which I had a lot of fun with. Fun drama. Really had a great message to it, gospel message to it that I really appreciated. Lately, I've been doing some writing for Heart Matters that a friend of ours, Austin Peachy, is working on too. If they haven't called you to act in it, they will. I'll make sure of that. But
I one a little while back because y'all are very prolific. I didn't really connected with Austin, but I've heard from Austin several times on the casting calls and stuff.
Yeah, and they're small right now, I think, but they're getting a lot of stuff out there, and I think it's gonna grow bigger. It's there's a couple scripts that I wrote for them that I really thought were some of the better things I've done, in my opinion, as far as just being satisfied with it. So hopefully, when somebody listens to it, they'll agree. I don't know. Not that I have to compare myself to anybody else, but I really enjoyed it. And Unshackled, I've been writing for about 2 years now, and that's just a huge blessing. I really like the people that I work for there. They just have such a great mission to reach out, and it's been on the radio since 1954. It's never been off, so it's the longest running audio drama in history, really.
Wow.
So that's pretty cool. And they're great people. They love the Lord and are really working to serve. So I like that. That's most of what I've done. Somewhere over 300 produced scripts. So
I didn't realize that. That's impressive. That's a lot of
I'm getting old. So yeah.
So for somebody that let's say is new to audio drama, but they like the idea, like you budget thing, like maybe I can't make a movie of it, but I could maybe do an audio drama. How would you advise that they tackle a project of getting something made into an audio drama? What would be the steps somebody would take?
You have to find the people who are going to help you, who are going to believe in what you're doing. Sometimes that's the hardest part too, because audio drama is still kind of an outlier. It's getting better again in America, but not everybody understands it yet. Find people who know what you want to do and really can bring something to the table, or at least want to learn. And that's maybe one of the biggest things. Be ready to be educated. Be ready to make lots of mistakes. Be ready to not get it right away. It takes a while to do it right. I mean, if I played, stuff that I recorded with friends on my 4-track recorder, 4-track recorder, that's how old I am, 30 years ago or more, it would just be embarrassing. I talked about Micah, and Micah, he recorded a full cast audio dramatization of Ben-Hur years ago, like years before I even met him. I think when he was a teenager. And I've never heard it because he won't play it for me, And I think that it's mostly because he didn't get to the level that he wanted, but he learned a ton, and that's the key. Everything you do, you want to learn something from. I learned, a lot from, like I said, working with Todd Bastide on Left Behind. I learned a lot of other things working on Kids Corner with Phil Lawler, more interpersonal stuff like we were talking about, very important. And when I went into the studio to direct the first Jake Muller, I was confident that I could do that job, and I got it done. I was happy with what I got, but I also learned a lot on that project that helped me a lot. I mean, it's just really raised the bar for me to do a better job on the last couple of Jake Mullers that we recorded. And it makes a difference. It really makes a difference. Just be ready to learn, be ready to make mistakes. You will always learn more from mistakes. Always. If you do something right, you did it right. Good on you. If you make a mistake, figure out what you did wrong, learn from it, and fix it. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. Also, don't settle. I think there's a lot of, I always said that with the first Jake Muller, which we really didn't get a lot of traction with, part of the reason was it came out at a time when our biggest competition, I always call them the 3 guys in the basement over the weekend, who just throw something together, record it, put some canned sound effects into it, and find some music from Incompetech or whatever and throw that on there too. And somebody listens to it, they'll put it on a platform like YouTube or whatever, and somebody will listen to it and say, oh, this is audio drama? I don't like this. Yeah. And, that hurts the guys who are, we spent $30,000 on one, and, we couldn't get an audience, in part because people had said, I don't like audio drama. And really, for good reason, because what they heard was not very good. So don't settle for anything. Make it as good as you possibly can. Be ready to learn. Don't get a great piece of artwork for your cover and think that's going to sell it for you. You really need to do better and better and better. And the good people, the good producers are gonna learn how to do that. In fact, a few years ago, it's funny. I'd written a script called The Titanic Wave, and wrote it a long time ago, but it got produced 4 years ago, I think, and you can find it on Audible. And I'm very proud of it. I think it's a fun, like 1 hour show. Very moving at times, very poignant. I had a great cast with it. We recorded it in the middle of the pandemic, so everybody recorded in their own studios and then sent it in. And Craig Hart was a producer on it, did an amazing job bringing people together. Craig is a huge talent, and I'm always excited to hear what he's got coming next, and I hope I get to work with him again soon. But we finished this, and we really liked it. And a few months ago, 2-3 months ago at the most, he just sent me an email and asked if I would mind if he redid some of the post production, the sound effects stuff. And I said no. I'd love to hear what you do with it. And I don't know how soon he's going to get to it, but apparently he heard something that he thought, okay, I can do better on this. And I think he will. Like I said, it's a terrific show. I'm very proud of it and the work that he did on it. And I'm really excited to hear what he does next with it. So it's cool. Learn from all the stuff. Make mistakes. Just take a chance. That's the big thing.
Aside from the cast, obviously, what you mentioned, having people around you to learn from, like who do you need around you? And let's say this is a low budget thing. It doesn't have a lot of funding yet. Maybe it's all volunteers, but who do you need on your team besides the cast, obviously?
People, well, it depends what you know how to do. I mean, if you know how to do all the post-production, the mixing, if somebody has a copy of I don't know what the latest, editing software would be, but even I keep thinking Handbrake. I keep thinking video, but there's the audio one that people use all the time. I forget what it is, but it's a free one. Learn how to use it.
Yeah.
Which one?
Like Audacity, maybe? Or...
Yeah, Audacity. That's the one. And I have it on my computer. So why I can't remember it? Probably because I'm getting old. But you need to find someone who not just knows how to use it mechanically, but knows how to use it in maybe a different way that can bring something new to the equation. That's where I'm really fortunate to have Micah. I've learned so much from him, and I really turn this stuff over to him, but I still learn from him because what happens in post-production informs what I need to get from the actors as a director. So one of the things that I think is important for someone, especially who's freshly going to direct audio drama, do something in the theater. You're going to meet the actors that you need, but you need to learn how to communicate with them. You need to learn how to say what you need from them. If you can direct in the theater, that helps a lot. But a lot of times when I go to local theater, really a lot of the directing doesn't amount to a whole lot more than just kind of directing traffic. Making sure that your actor is here and then he's here and she's right there where you want them to be physically, and then they don't concern themselves with performance. Figure out what you need your actors to do. As a director, I always would, especially with stuff that I've written, I would say to the actor, okay, know why you're saying this at this moment and why you're saying it the way you're saying it. That's the most important thing, because how many times have you gone to a play or something like that and somebody's saying a line that they don't have any idea what it means, why they're saying it, and it's easy to spot. So kind of have a sense of directing, I guess. Talk to directors, other directors. Figure out. You really, even if you've written something, it doesn't always mean that you understand it. I know what I'm talking about here. You don't always, you don't always know why you wrote something, and sometimes don't be afraid to change it. That's one thing, but also don't be afraid to have people around you who will tell you, no, that doesn't work. I mean, you were in the studio when when Dugan reminded me that I have a very different sense of humor than other people, and he doesn't always, I don't want to say he doesn't understand the lines, but I think he understands what I'm doing, but he just doesn't. He wants to say something else, so he'll go after me and say, "Yeah, nobody Nobody would say that in the last 50 years. And, he's right more than he's wrong. And you need people like that. You need people who are going to kind of push back to make things better. So surround yourself with those people. Anybody can find yes men, or somebody who's just going to blindly follow orders. Those people don't help you that much. You think, okay, they're making it really smooth, but then you listen to it and you think, oh, it could have been so much better if somebody had just told me that it sounds stupid, I mean, not like that, but you need people who are gonna push back and who are gonna hold you accountable. Accountability is a great thing. So have those people. Have people who understand audio drama, people who've listened to a lot of it. There's a lot of people who will use the excuse and say, well, there's not a whole lot of audio drama to listen to. And that is so not true. I mean, if I look around my room here, I could probably find, just in line of sight, 50 different CDs of audio drama. And there's so much more. I get a lot of stuff on Audible right now. And a lot of this stuff you can find on YouTube to listen to. Find something that interests you that's in a similar genre and listen to that. Have fun listening to it. And if you're not having fun, just stop. Don't continue, because it's not going to be fun later. Make your show as fun as you can possibly make it. And it doesn't mean it has to be funny or anything. It just has to be something that you're so committed to that, even though you're not looking to make a nickel off it, you would still do it, because it's time consuming, and give it the time it needs. Don't be three guys in the basement over a weekend. Make it better than that.
That's good. That's good. What was that one that you sent out before we recorded earlier in the spring with
Tom Baker at the Russia House?
Russia House.
Yeah.
And that one's on.
Contagious.
I picked it up off of Audible and twice.
Yeah.
But I think you sent out a YouTube link eventually, right?
after you bought it, yeah.
Because I want to put that in the show notes, because that's so good. That would be a good example of just brilliant acting.
Well, it is. I think Tom Baker. I'm a big Doctor Who fan. The Russia House is the best Tom Baker ever, in my opinion. And I have other audio dramas that he's done that I think he's fantastic in. Including more Doctor Who, but I think he's fantastic in that, and he fits the part. Sean Connery played that character in the movie, not as good as Tom Baker.
Right.
Everybody knows Sean Connery, but not everybody knows Tom Baker. But it's funny because the BBC had done like 4 or 5. They'd probably done more, but 4 or 5 John le Carré audio dramas that I thought were fantastic. Their Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy that they did in the late 70s, early 80s. It's fantastic. Smiley's People is another one that was just amazing. And I'm trying to think of the actor. Oh, Bernard Hepton was his name. And he played the Smiley character who Alec Guinness played in the TV shows. And, it's just, listen to these guys, these British actors who don't live with a stigma attached to voice acting. To them, it's a real regular job that they have, and they're trained. At RADA and other places, they'll train them how to use their voice properly, and they're fantastic. They're so good. And you listen to a voice and think, hey, I recognize that voice from something. Hey, it may have been a movie you saw 10 years ago that left an impression. And, there's another character in there that in Tinker Tailor and Smiley's People, played by an actor named, I was going to say Charles Adams. Is it Charles Adams? It's Charles something. Charles K is his name. And I listen to it, and he speaks with this Hungarian accent and speaks in these malapropisms all the time. And you're just listening to it going, how do I know that voice? Who is that guy? And then you look him up on the Internet Movie Database, and he was one of the king's court in Amadeus. Like, oh. And then you watch Amadeus, and you're like, oh, yeah, for sure. I get it now. But these guys are just great because they use this muscle, you know. And I know you know more than I do about that. And it's so important. And they do such a great job with it, you know. Find those kind of actors. Also, getting back to what you have to do, don't get a stage performance out of people. Go for like a movie performance. It's more natural.
What does that mean to someone that might not know? What is the difference in a stage performance and a movie performance?
Part of it is the way you project things. You know, on stage you're always performing for the last row, so you're really projecting it out there. You're getting things out there in a big way. And in movies, it's all about the you know, unless it's Al Pacino screaming about something, you know, it's all about the subtleties of the performance. You know, the quiet moments are stronger than you know, someone flipping their lid and really just throwing it all out there. And in audio drama, you don't really need to do that. I mean, you're right by the microphone, and you know what a tool your voice is. And you know, in your reading, you find lines that you can lean in a little bit and really give it to something like that. And there's some you just kind of sit back and just read it as it is. There's also an element that and I'm very big on this, and you may have heard me say it when we were recording. Not everything that you say is the most important words coming out of your mouth. If you're performing a David Mamet play, you have to be word perfect, and everything has to be, you know, it has to be given a huge importance. In movies, you can get away with you know, just throwing something away. Yeah. Again, the whole line can be, yeah, well, you know, and he can just throw it out, and that works, and that actually will say more about your character sometimes than, you know, a soliloquy will. So I don't know. It's all about the subtleties at that point. And I think not a lot of plays really deal in subtext the way they should. Some do, mostly from the 40s and 50s, 1940s and 50s. But I haven't seen a real subtle or subtextual play in a while. So I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I don't get out much. But
so in closing, tell us about just maybe a quick overview of what is Jake Muller about, Jake Muller Adventures, and also where can we get it?
Yeah, for sure. Largely, it's a show about the spiritual warfare that I believe is taking place in this world, how we should respond to some things, and even what does the Bible say about some things. But it's also about a guy's spiritual journey as he's navigating this minefield that at the beginning he's not prepared for at all. And even as the story continues, you know, he might think he's prepared, but he's a fallible person, and he's going to make mistakes. And one of the things that I absolutely built into this show is, and I got this from George Lucas talking about Indiana Jones. He said he's always in over his head. And that's where I want Jake. He's always in over his head and dealing with things that he has no understanding of. So in some ways, he is the audience's entrance into these different topics. The first one, UFOs and aliens. At the beginning, he doesn't know what he thinks about UFOs and aliens. By the by the end, he has an opinion. And the second one, Blood, which is out now, is about vampires, but not Dracula and not, True Blood or the popular version of vampires. It's about this subculture that really exists in bigger cities. Chicago has a vampire subculture. New Orleans, Micah said, has a huge vampire subculture. And obviously they're not people that are undead, going around, biting people and drinking their blood, though they do some of that. But there's different types of vampirism that people indulge in. And I believe it's very dangerous. And that's what that story is about. The third story, which will be coming out soon, we still hold on to some hopes that it might come out this year, but I think it's more likely probably January or February of 2025. It's called Undead, where blood, it was a very heavy story, very dark and spiritual in a lot of ways. Undead was a definite response to that we wanted to do a lighter show, more fun. And then we kind of did some of that, because it's definitely got some darkness to it as well, and some deeper themes, but it has we talk about zombies in it, and really what death means to a Christian. It's not a huge part of it. I mean, it's not an evangelical, Bible dump on you about things like UFOs and zombies, because there's no such thing as zombies. But it talks about the subcultures a little bit, but there's also a level of zombie that exists in this story that there's more to it than that. But it also turns into a very action-packed drama that we couldn't afford to film if we had Marvel level budgets, because the way this ends, I mean, your character gets to blow a few things up, and that's kind of cool. And we like that. But there's a greater story. There's things that we, when we wrote it, we were like, yeah, wouldn't it be neat if, and then we put that in, and all of a sudden, the next two stories kind of explode out of it. Actually, the next three stories at least blow out of some of that stuff. But it's a lot of fun. My idea is I wanted to do something action-packed, but I wanted it to be fun. Hopefully clever dialogue, great banter between these characters who all know each other, love each other, will do anything to help each other, have gone through these different adventures together and really support each other. And it's the spiritual journey of all of them. Jake is the prime mover and everything, but the people around him are affected by everything that happens. It's got a little bit of everything. I mean, action mainly, a little bit of romance and stuff. Don't get too crazy on it, but a lot of action, a lot of car crashes and explosions and stuff, and hopefully just a lot of fun. That's what I want it to be. And if you're looking for it, you can go to www.jakemulleradventures.com. In fact, like I said, Blood has been for sale now for, I think, about 3 weeks, maybe. I don't know if you remember when we contacted you guys. But just today, Micah received boxes of CDs. So there is physical media involved too. And when you buy a CD, you get the download for free. So you get to listen to it even before your CD arrives in the mail, old school style. And I'm a physical media guy, so I definitely want to get my hands on a CD or two. But yeah, and we also sell a PDF download of the script for the first two that have been released. Jared DePasquale has the soundtrack for Unidentified on Spotify. So you can go there and listen to it. He does great work.
Yes.
He did an amazing job on Blood. And I know you've only listened to the first 2 episodes. What he brings later on really is outstanding. He's so good. And I think he scored some horror movies back in the day. So he was really interested in getting back into that groove and
Right.
indulging that muscle. But it is on Spotify. The dramas are now too. You can get it on Audible. Several other platforms are coming, but I don't know what they all are.
Okay.
It's like 48 different platforms we're going to have it on. So pretty much anywhere you go to get podcasts within the next month, I would say. But let's just say by December, we should have it on most of those.
Okay.
Would you like to hear a trailer for Blood?
Yes, I would. Let's do it.
All right, sit back. How's that for a lead in for you?
That's perfect.
I talk too much. I'm sorry.
No, that was great. I'm trying. Let me do a little outro, and then we'll just wrap up our regular conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
Darby, thank you so much for coming on. That was peek into the mind of a genius. I love your work.
There's nothing genius about me.
and talking with us, and it was a real pleasure.
Thank you. It was great being here. I enjoyed chatting with you. I hope when we get together to record again, we find time to sit down and just chin wag for a while. It's always good to see you.
Well, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed that. You can learn more about Jake Muller Adventures by visiting www.jakemulleradventures.com. And also, to hear classic literature audiobooks ad-free, which helps support the show and helps them keep making them, please consider becoming a patron on Patreon. It's where you pay $3 a month to hear my audiobooks ad-free, and it supports the show. I'll put a link in the show notes. As always, thank you very much for listening. You've been listening to The Cultured Bumpkin, a literature podcast with Jake Phillips. Thank you very much for listening. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed this, would you mind going and subscribing and leaving a nice review on whatever podcast platform you heard this on? I would really appreciate it. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.